So this is a little example of a carousel. Okay, so the idea is that if you change the carousels, if you change the start at degrees of the circle, the carousel can rotate. And it's supposed to be responding to my inputs as well. I'm not sure why that's not working. But the idea is to change this value whenever the user presses a button. Then let's see how this is built really quick. So I'm going to disable this one and just kind of build it from scratch to show you how it works. So if I created a simple, let's go back to our scene, circle layout. And then I can change the radius of that circle however I like and drop a few planes into it. So if I go to 3D object, let's do quads. So quads are going to be our images. And I'll just drop a few of these in. And you can see here that they're kind of spaced out at a fixed step. So it's saying every 30 degrees, I'm going to space a new one out. That's not what I want in this case because I want a carousel. So I want them to be spaced out evenly. So now they are at even points around the circle. And then I want them, so we can see here, camera's not perfect, but we can see here they're all facing me, which is not really what I want for the carousel. I want them all to be facing out of the circle. So let's change the rotate option to out or in, depends on the type of object you have. So now all these objects are rotated this way. So if I work my way around the circle, I can see that they're all facing out. If I want then to rotate those objects around the circle, I would change this start at degrees property. So you can see easily how you might, in a script, say when a user presses the left arrow button, I'm going to rotate it so many degrees to in the negative direction or the positive direction. Okay, so another interesting aspect of this original carousel, there's two kind of interesting things I want to point out. So one is you can see these objects are correctly sized to fit the image. They're not just squares. So we're going to see how to do that. And the other interesting aspect of it is if I take my carousel and I wanted to adjust all these objects, you can notice that they're all the same height, even though they are different dimensions. And so if I increase or decrease the size of my circle in the height, the objects are fitting in that circle. So how does that work? So let's start by making all the objects, let's give them some images and make those images sized correctly. So at the moment, this bird is kind of stretchy. And so the way Flexalon typically works is if you have a mesh, it's just using the size of that mesh to compute the size of this object. And so the size of the quad mesh is a 1x1 square, and so it's just going to use that. So what we would need in this case is to use a custom adapter. We want an adapter that says, take the texture size applied to this mesh and resize the mesh to fit, or resize the Flexalon object to fit the size of that texture, depending on one of the dimensions, the width or the height, and keep the aspect ratio. So fortunately, the samples comes with this adapter already that you can check out. With the fix adapter now, now it's huge. So the reason it's huge is because now it's saying, what is the texture pixel size of this bird? And applying that to the Flexalon object, which isn't really what we want because that's really big. You can see here, it thinks it needs to be 1365 by 2048. That's the size of the image. So what we want is to constrain one of the ends. We want either the width or the height to be fixed. And then we allow the other axis to freely adjust based on the adapter. So let's go ahead and add a Flexalon object to this mesh. And we're going to set the, let's, as an example, set the width to be fixed. So now the width is definitely 1 because that's what I fixed it to. And the height is determined by the component, which is determined by this image adapter that we added. So now as I change the width, it maintains its aspect ratio. But that's not actually what we wanted, because if you remember in the original, it was based on the height of the circle. So instead of setting this to fixed, we're going to set it back to component and set the height to fill the height of the circle. So now when I change the height of the circle, let's change it from layout, which is computing based on the other children, which are size 1. Let's change it to fixed. Sorry, not the depth, the height. And as I change the height, you can see now this image is changing in height as well. And we could go ahead and do that for all the other quads. Let's do this one, and for all of them, then add the image adapter and the Flexalon object. Okay, we can set all of their heights to fill. There you go. So now as I rotate this, you can see they all maintain the same height and their aspect ratios get fixed.